Although I teach languages, my primary focus is painting, and as such, language in the broader sense of the term has always been my main interest and the foundation of my research. My discipline is rooted in the visual. When I began painting, I quickly became fascinated with ancient signs and symbols, including petroglyphs, pictographs, and rock and cave paintings dating back to the earliest stages of humankind in the Paleolithic era. The more I study ancient images, the deeper my interest grows. The three Venus, or divine figures featured here, are among the oldest ever discovered. They are often referred to as the Great Goddess. It is important to recognize that the concept of a singular male god is relatively recent. Moses introduced us to Yahweh, and Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten, who reigned from 1379 to 1362 BC, introduced us to Aten, both names referring to the one and only male god. However, for the majority of the world, the concept of the one and only male god began with Jesus Christ and Mohammed, a millennium and a half later. Therefore, the person who carved those statuettes or created those ancient images had a radically different concept of existence compared to what we have today. It is virtually impossible to imagine the sensations and sentiments they experience. In the screen you see the Berehad drum that was found in High Golan at the Syrian border. It is made of volcanic rock, lava, and there are still doubts about its authenticity. It is about 3.5 centimeters tall, and I reckon it could be 220,000 years BC. Willendorf was found in Austria, is made of limestone and measures 11.1 centimeters and is dated in between 30 and 25,000 BC. And Lespouk is made from ivory, found in France, and is 14.7 centimeters tall, dating from approximately 22,500 BC. It is interesting to see the circles that prevail all around the images. The simplicity is striking. Why are curves erotic and attractive? When do they stop being erotic? Why? What is the secret of the curve? Here we have images from Puente Viesgo, near Santander, in Spain. These drawings are inside a cave called El Castillo. The paintings belong to the Upper Paleolithic, that is the period from 40,000 to 10,000 BP, before present. Paints on those days were manufactured from combinations of minerals, burned bone meal and charcoal, mixed into mediums of water, blood, animal, maybe human, fats and subs. The colors used were red and black, later ochre yellow was also used. It is important to mention that paint is often found in burials, together with food vessels and other ritual-like items, perhaps placed there to help the dead person during his or her journey to another life. This demonstrates how important visual expression has always been. The four top images are placed on Gallery 64, quite away from the entrance, which is where there is light, and it would have been easier to paint. Why did they choose to paint where it was so difficult? No light and very high up in the ceilings. Perhaps the dotted image here could be a lunar count. But why the cross shape? Look at the geometric images. What are they? Wings? Those in Gallery 55 resemble a sail. Then if we look at Gallery 45, we see dots and a curved shape. They also painted images on top of images, as it happens today in modern times with graffiti. I would like to point out that all these images taken in the north of Spain were done by Takeo Okazawa, a friend of mine and photographer resident in Japan. And I think the whole project was financed by the University of Cantabria. So thank you very much to both of them. Now let's look at Gallery 31, placed on a pointed corner. The shape of some of these caves in the past was altered for commercial reasons, allowing tourists or difficulty for the experts to work. Nowadays this is not happening and there is much more respect for the original founds. I enclose a picture of the rock formation inside the cave. Notice the shapes of the rocks. The interiors resemble a human vagina. Note also the sprayed hands, always left hand, sometimes with mutilated fingers. They exist all over the world and they are all very similar. The further back in time we go, the more similar these marks are all over the world. Data from this early period in human history is rather limited. Some of these earlier forms of rock art might be connected with the beginnings of writing. Dots, squares, rectangles, lines, what are they? Yet again, let's look at the simplicity of these images. As I explained, I'm not an academic or an archaeologist in any way. I'm reading all these images from purely a painter's point of view. In this image we have a drawing done by an Austrian philologist called Ernst Doppelhofer, sorry for my pronunciation, published in Vienna in 1957, comparing 48 signs of the undeciphered scripts of Indus Valley and Easter Island. On the first line we can see the Indus one, and next to it the one of Easter Island. Both scripts have 100 basic signs each. The Indus Valley script consists of statite, soapstone, stamp seals and terracotta tablets, as well as some graffiti. It belongs to the people of the earliest occupation of the Indus River Valley, of what is now Pakistan and Western India by the Arabian Sea. This civilization predates 2500 BC. It appears that the cultures of Samaria, Egypt and the Indus Valley existed simultaneously during 2500 to 2000 BC. Ruins of the ancient cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro indicate that these people built drainage systems that ran into brick-lined sewers that were connected to multiple storied brick homes. They also developed this complex writing, only partially deciphered, and counting. Had a polytheistic belief system. They excavated canals to create large irrigation systems for their farms. Some scholars associate this culture with Vedic literature, which are orally transmitted texts of hymns of devotion to the gods, manuals of sacrifice for their worship, descriptions of epic wars between gods and gods and humans. The age and the origin of the Vedic texts are uncertain and ambiguous. They first appeared in written form in the late Bronze Age, but all scholars agree they make references to events that occurred hundreds, if not thousands, or perhaps tens of thousands of years earlier. The second script, called Rongo Rongo, comes from Easter Island, an island in the middle of the South Pacific Ocean. Those wooden plates and lengthy sticks where it is written are 500 years old at the most. So, there is a 4,000 years gap between one script and the other. Scholars say that the previous knowledge could have been a derivative of the Chinese script or one of the many branches of the Brahmi script. Some other experts relate it to the Mayas and Popol Vuh, the ancient Bible of the Indians of Guatemala. In conclusion, we are comparing the unknown with the unknown. Yet, the similarity of the pictograms is extraordinary, and they both have about 100 signs. What we do know is that in 1862, people from Easter Island were taken to Peru as slaves, and with them the Rongo Rongo experts. They died, leaving no clues to the meaning of these plates and sticks. 11 years later, the Catholic Bishop of Tahiti, F.E. Hausen, made a list of meanings with the help of natives from the island. Yet experts are not very convinced of its accuracy. the explicit sexual references of some of the images most probably collided with the puritanical beliefs of the Catholic priest. I will read later an example of this. I should also say that as a painter, I have very strong doubts about the authenticity of written history. Architecture, sculpture and painting, as well as poetry and literature, are the only forms of human history which I choose to trust. There is a broken seal featuring a unicorn. Unfortunately, I do not have an image of it, with an inscription that recounts the parable of the elephant in the dark. The narrator of this parable was likely a Brahmin well versed in the Vedas, who may have also retained some knowledge of the Hindu script. A later version of the same parable appears in the Buddhist text, where it is told in the context of a visit by the Buddha to Savatthi. There, Brahmins and monks were engaged in heated disputes over what was right and wrong in doctrine. To illustrate his point, the Buddha recounted the story of a king who ordered that all the blind people in the town, those blind from birth, be gathered. Once assembled, the king instructed a man to present an elephant to them. The man led each blind person to a different part of the elephant. Some touched the head, others the ear, the tusk, the trunk, and so forth, telling each person, "The elephant is like this." Afterwards, the king asked them to describe the elephant. Those who had touched the head said it was like a water pot. Those who had touched the ear compared it to a winnowing basket. Those who had touched the tusk likened it to a peg, and so on. Disagreements quickly turned into arguments, with each insisting, "The elephant is like this," or "The elephant is not like this." The Buddha then explained that disputes over doctrine were similar. Each perspective was like touching only a part of the elephant, never grasping the whole truth. The broken unicorn seal contains similar symbols as seen on the screen. However, instead of an elephant, the seal depicts a unicorn. The first cup sign represents the water pot, the head. The two fill signs resemble the winnowing basket, the ear. The triangle sign corresponds to the plough, the trunk. The step sign represents the handle of the plough. The stroke sign symbolizes the covering, the belly. As the blind only touch the skin of the belly, the first man sign stands for the pillar, the leg, indicated by the stroke or phallus between the legs. The second cup sign represents the mortar, the back. The horned man sign signifies the pestle, the tail. And the teeth sign represents the broom, the tuft or tail. The meaning of these individual signs appears to change depending on interpretation and placement. Interestingly, this first sign can also be read as a woman, a container, in other seals. Before proceeding further, I must acknowledge that I share what Balzac called the vulgar taste of comparison, and I am aware of the risks in drawing parallels between ancient symbols and images from different cultures without scientific data. In strict scientific terms, pairing a giraffe with a whale may be impossible, but through image making it becomes entirely feasible. Cézanne and later Picasso embarked on a visual journey using the geometry of nature to expand the spatial dimensions of the picture plane. I invite you to be vulgar with me and see what we find out at the end of this lecture. Now back to the scripts. There is a Vedic verse that could very well be related to this Markhor seal from the Indus Valley. The first sign, as we have seen, is often read as a vat or a vessel. The second could represent a flow of fluid. The Markhor is a goat with spiral horns that still lives in the western Himalayas today. Here the animal has a human face, perhaps to represent a god. The animal is also called Avika, where Avi means wall. In the Vedic verse, a young girl is speaking to the Shir Kashyapa, the author of the hymn. He obtained the girl along with horses and cows as payment from an Asura king after performing a great sacrifice for him. Apparently, it was common to receive women, cattle and maiden as payment for services. The verse reads, "Come here and embrace me closely. Do not believe that I have few hairs. I'm full of hairs, like a sheep of the Gandharis." The girl refers to her pubic hair because in ancient India it was forbidden to have sexual intercourse with a girl whose pubic hair had not yet grown. The sheep of the Gandharis was another name for the Markho beast. According to the text, the seer in question was 100 years old. Regrettably, his reaction to her declaration of love has not been recorded. However, from accounts from another seer, Agastya, we can deduce that the old man lived with her thereafter. The erotic frankness of the verse is not surprising in the Vedas, where sexual allusions are frequent. Fluid or sap is often mentioned in Vedic verses, carrying various meanings related to sex, conception, birth, and life. Consider also the image of the Great Bath, 12 per 7 meters plus 2.4 meters deep. That is in the city of Mohenjo-Daro, an open-air bath used by both men and women. Additionally, observe the two statuettes. Both women stand freely and openly, far from submissive, in stark contrast to the 3 Venuses we examined earlier. Regarding the hymns, the 2 signs could be interpreted as referring to pubic hair, as mentioned in the text, with the first sign signifying "embrace me closely." Alternatively, the inscription could reference soma, the elixir made from magic mushrooms like the one depicted in the image, used in ceremonies. Another Vedic hymn states, "Mix with water, purified soma, your sap flows over the wool of the sheep in the vat." The meaning here is almost as erotic as in the previous verse, though without the personal relationship. It is important to remember that the same sign can have different meanings depending on its placement, making decipherment challenging. The same applies to Vedic verses, as their meaning could change based on how they were recited, leading to the formation of different schools of thought. The Rongo-Rongo script carved onto a breast ornament known as Re Miro 2, see image on ornament and script, contains several lines deciphered by scholars as follows. The man with the feather stick, the timo, comes to the sacrificial ground. He grasps the vulva of the cool girl. He goes to the cool girl, the girl whose vulva is small, while she sleeps. He gets the fish after the vulva, lets itself be grasped on the rock. After the vulva allows itself to be inspected. After the good thing, the vulva permits itself to be grasped, the vulva on the rock. If the vulva is small, they carve the sign of the fish and the vulva into the rock. The girl's vulva is the navel of the earth. The girl's vulva on the hill, the girl's vulva. Timo, according to Meteoro's reading, was the second most important man in Easter Island society after the king. For girls, the initiation ritual began with an examination of their vulva. To undergo this ritual, they ascended the hill of Orongo, climbed onto a rock and presented themselves to the Rongo-Rongo men, who determined whether their vulva was small, an indication of virginity. If virginity was confirmed, the symbol was carved into the rock upon which the girl stood. In Samoa, similar customs were practiced, where girls were even deflowered manually in a public space. In Easter Island society, virginity was associated with great spiritual power, known as mana. According to Rongo-Rongo tablets and oral tradition, a stick was used for this purpose. The defloration was carried out in private by the timo or another elder. This initiation ritual for girls paralleled the circumcision of boys, known as incision in Tahiti. The initiation ceremony was accompanied by a grand feast in which warriors also participated. During this event, kava, the Polynesian equivalent of soma, was consumed. Without forgetting Balzac's definition, I will now show you a Paleolithic painting from a cave in northern Spain called Tito Bustillo. Experts generally agree that these images might represent vulvas or vaginas. It is possible that a similar ritual existed in the northern part of the Iberian Peninsula, though we cannot be sure. Take a look at the interior of the caves as well. So far, we have observed ancient forms and images that continue to exist today. However, sound is a different matter. We have no idea what sounds were used for communication in the ancient past. I have chosen 12 basic words and recorded them in 7 languages: Arabic, Urdu, Persian, Basque, Chinese, Greek, and Hebrew. Unfortunately, I lost the recording of Persian, which I believe it was Farsi, and very similar to Urdu. You will guess the meanings of the words by looking at the images. I gave this lecture in 2010. This is just an attempt to make a record of it.
الثرى هواء ماء نار أزرق أصفر أخضر أحمر حب كراهية الشمس القمر
地球、空气、水、火、蓝、黄、绿、红、爱、恨、太阳、月亮、
ज़मीन हवा पानी आग नीला पीला सब्ज सुर्ख मोहब्बत नफरत सूरज चांद
אדמה, אוויר, מים, אש, כחול, צהוב, ירוק, אדום, אהבה, שנאה, שמש, ירח.
G, aera, nero, φωτιά, γαλάτσιο, κίτρινο, πράσινο, κόκκινο, αγάπη, μίσος, ο ήλιος, το φεγγάρι.
Lur, aire, ur, su, eguzkia, ilargia, urdin, hori, berde, gorri, maitasun, gorroto.
Perhaps it is my imagination, but the sounds of all those precious words are extremely musical, especially the words for love and hate. The person who read the words in Basque altered the order, as you have probably noticed. It is also interesting that the words for green and air are the same in Basque than in Spanish, which I found that very strange. Maybe a long time ago there was a word and it was lost, but it's very interesting, isn't it? Okay, then let's keep the sounds fresh in our minds. If we compare the signs from the 2 ancient scripts we have seen, it will be very difficult, if not impossible, to separate our responses from the influences of our history, knowledge, and present-day society needs. And just for clarification, the words are as follow: earth, air, water, fire, blue, yellow, green, red, love, hate, the sun, the moon. Perhaps the sign we have that has remained unchanged from the origins of mankind representing our genitals as a vulva and as a phallus is this one and this one. Even science has used such symbols. Here are some examples. Our own alphabet can be said to have evolved from these simple images. Of course, there are many ways to interpret these symbols, but the choice is ours. We have seen the small size and simplicity of the curves in the Venus figurines. We have also seen the geometry of the unknown signs in the Spanish caves, as well as the basic signs of the undeciphered scripts, with some interpretations providing a few clues. Whoever drew or carved them wanted to convey something in the most economical way possible. Even great art today continues to follow this principle. To conclude, I would like to show you a painting that was hidden for years after its creation. The artist was Gustave Courbet, a 19th century French painter. The painting is called The Origins of the World and dates from 1866. Next to it, I have placed a map of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers in Iraq. Below, you will find a graphic comparing a symbol from the undeciphered Indus script to 4 signs from deciphered scripts. I will leave these images to your imagination. Based on this, I ask you to try to create a symbol for love and one for hate. This handout might help you. I would love to receive as many of your symbols as possible. With them, we could also try to invent a sound for the next lecture. Thank you very much.